Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We got a lot of updates, a lot of details from Avdiivka area. Today is 15th of October, so the 5th day of the Russian offensive operation in this area has started. There were a lot of speculations, a lot of projections during the first 5 days, and according to some Russian sources, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to establish control over almost half of Ukraine. But we now currently understand that all those updates were just speculations, or at least wishful thinkings. For example, we still haven't received any details, any updates regarding the Russian positions on the Ukrainian side of the railways between Berdych and Krasnogorovka. So that's why I took a decision to mark this territory as a gray zone, because of complete absence of any proofs about that. But today the Russian sources reported that as a result of clashes for the railway station between the city by the name of Stepova and Krasnogorovka, this small railway station, the Russians managed to establish full control over this territory, and the Ukrainians under the pressure were forced to step back. So this is the railway station by the name of 437 kilometers. So this is the title of this railway station. And according to this geolocation, the Russians have just got the, let's say, the established control over some part of the railways. Currently, the Russians need some time, probably half a day for regrouping and bringing fresh forces. And only after that, the Russians will be able to continue their offensive operation inside the city and the village by the name of Stepova, and only probably today the Russians will cross the railways and continue their offensive operation. So this is the current situation, at least on the northern part, but yet we haven't received even a single confirmation about control even of this 437 kilometer station, but I believe that we're gonna receive some. Also, the Russians published another video of 500 strikes against the city of Avdiivka. This city is under very heavy fire 24 hours a day, and of course like 7 days a week. All these bombings allow the Russians to pin down the Ukrainians, to reduce their possibilities to be flexible and to regroup and to send forces from one part of Avdiivka to another. And under heavy bombardments you can use just operational reserves on each part of Avdiivka. Furthermore, today we got like the second day in a row when the Russian sources report about establishing full fire control over the only supply road that Ukrainians have that goes from Avdiivka to Orlovka. Yet we haven't received even a single video confirmation of, of destroyed armored vehicles and the fire and so on, but I believe that this situation have a lot of common with the situation with the road between Chasov Yar and Khromovo in Bakhmut, at least when talking about the distances between Russian and Ukrainian positions. And as I understand, the Russians haven't established 100% control, and maybe the level of losses of the Ukrainians while using this road has around probably maybe 30%, but not more, as I understand currently, based on the situation and complete absence of any geolocations from this direction. When talking about the northern flank, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions and concentration of Ukrainian forces on the line between Alexandropol and New York on this area, trying not to allow the Ukrainians to concentrate their forces and not to allow the Ukrainians to counterattack the Russians in their back, while they have very fierce and very heavy clashes in the vicinity of Krasnogorovka. This is not the only video from this direction. If we increase the number of updates since the beginning of Russian offensive operation, we see that the Russians are pretty focused in this area. That means that there are a lot of Ukrainian forces who are just waiting for an order, but yet they haven't received nothing. Very interesting updates are coming from Zaporozhye area, from the battle for Bradley Square and so on. The Ukrainians continue concentration of their forces on the northern part of Kopany. Currently they have significant number of forces. As a result of clashes during the previous day, the Ukrainians managed to even establish control over some Russian trenches and positions, and during the previous 24 hours the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces in this area using FPV drones. So this is something, the first preparation before upcoming Russian counter-offensive operation on the lost positions during the previous Ukrainian counter-offensive. So, and that was attack from the Ukrainian side, probably unexpected. For some reason, the Russians weren't prepared for that attack, and I remind you that as a result of attack with one tank and armored carrier, the Ukrainians managed to capture a very powerful, rich network of Russian positions. The Russians were forced to step back, and now they try to find a solution how to return control over these territories. Furthermore, the Ukrainians have moved in this direction, like a lot of electronic warfare equipment, and this entire equipment reduced the Russian possibilities to use FPV drones. On this video, for example, we can see how the Ukrainians tried to suppress the Russian FPV drone, and he was suppressed at least for a very long time, but in the end the video the Russians managed to restore connection, and after that they attacked Ukrainian positions. Later the Russians managed to discover the position of Ukrainian electronic warfare equipment, and after that they destroy it. There is like this is the radar, this is the equipment, and then they managed to destroy it. Anyway, we see that Ukrainians try to be very careful in this area. They brought not just infantry armored vehicles, also they try to develop their electronic warfare equipment network, and after that, probably before the winter comes, they will try to attack in direction of Kopany with all forces they have. But when talking about fields between Robotyne and Verbove, the Ukrainians were failed in this area. They were defeated completely in this area, and currently they stop any supporting of this territory. The most important that the Russians, as a result of very powerful and expected counter-offensive operation, managed to restore control over the trenches and fortifications on the western part, on the west of Verbove. And as a result of attack, lots of trenches, very rich network of trenches was recaptured by the Russians. So this is the video confirmation. This is a very fresh video. A lot of Ukrainian soldiers were captured as prisoners of war. So basically, as a result of counter-offensive operation using few armored personnel carriers, the Russians started their movements from Verbove. They reached the trenches, they landed the infantry, and after that they captured the entire territory. Before that, the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces on the southwestern part of Verbove using FPV drones, trying to suppress the Ukrainians, trying maybe to refocus the Ukrainians in this direction, but later they attacked in completely different area. So anyway, as a result of clashes in the western part of Verbove, the Russians, as there is a very high chances because we have geolocation, as a result of counterattack, the Russians managed to restore control at least over this territory. And probably and obviously this is not the last Russian attack. They will continue offensive operation, at least from Verbove in direction of the fields, and the Russians will make more attempts to attack from the south in the same direction. So the main goal and the main purpose to meet the forces somewhere in this part of the fields. Let's say the greatest Russian counter-offensive operation in the Zaporozhye area has started. Also, a lot of updates we got from the area on the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. More and more updates are coming from the area between Pryiutne, Staromayorskoye and Rovnopol. And according to information we have, the Russians, as a result of counter-offensive operation, managed to restore control over these territories. At least we have another geolocated video of Russian special operation where the Russians were using tanks, armored vehicles, artillery preparation. Then we have like night special operation, like Russian storming operation when the Russians were moving among the trenches trying to force the Ukrainians to step back. We have the evidence of a lot of explosions and prisoners of war was captured. So this is the situation in this area. If we receive more updates, we will update the map and we will color this territory in red. And this is a very powerful operation because the Russians, if it's true, managed to get the outskirts of Rovnopol, and there are very high chances that the Russians also are able to return control, and the Russians can take control over Rovnopol. They will be able to start offensive operation in direction of the Mokry Yala river and to return everything they lost during the battle, during the Ukrainian offensive operation that took place during the summer of 2023. Of course, the Russians can return control over these fields. The Ukrainian positions in Staromayorskoye, Orozhaine, Makarovka will be collapsed automatically, and the Ukrainians will be forced to step back. Very interesting updates are coming from Kupiansk direction. The Russian sources are saying that as a result of very heavy clashes in Synkivka, and we discussed those clashes because according to the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, almost every single day the Ukrainians lose around 200 soldiers, and under such a very heavy pressure, the Ukrainians were forced to step back to Synkivka, closer to Petropavlovka. The Russians managed to enter the city, on the northern part at least, and started like digging in deeper to prepare the foothold for further advances to the south. One more time, we haven't received even a single confirmation, but sometimes it's even important to receive some text messages to understand the direction of thinking and direction of understanding of the common situation in this territory. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.